It still doesn't look like a ceasefire, but Russia and the US resurrect their superpower muscle to try and stop the slaughter in Syria. Could this be the deal that everyone's been waiting for? It took dozens of meetings, but Sergei Lavrov and John Kerry, the odd couple of superpower shuttle diplomacy, finally struck a deal. Good evening. So could this really pave the way out of 5 years of butchery in Syria's civil war? Both Moscow and Washington want to prove that they still have what it takes to impose their will. The plan is for a week-long ceasefire by Monday evening and then a joint task force to combat Islamist extremists. President Assad, who relies heavily on Russia, has already welcomed the move. He really had no choice. But even today, 25 civilians were killed in an attack on the market. So can this deal actually hold? First, on the streets of England, a plan for 2 Polish police officers to be on the beat in Harlow, Essex, to reassure the Polish community after last month's killing. In a special report, we explore the depth of mistrust in Harlow. The fall and rise and fall again of Rangers as they meet their historic rival Celtic in the Scottish Premier League for the first time in 4 years, only to be pummeled 5-1. And at the Paralympics, 3 gold medals in 9 minutes for Team GB. With 29 medals in 3 days, are we about to break another Rio record? Hostilities will cease at sunset on Monday, but still the airstrikes go on. America and Russia have agreed a deal to reduce the violence in Syria and coordinate attacks against jihadist groups. Hours after the agreement, at least 25 people were killed when jets bombarded the rebel-held city of Idlib, hitting a busy marketplace. A warning. Victoria McDonald's report contains distressing images from the start.
The ink barely dry on the ceasefire deal and the bombs came down. A Syrian government strike on Idlib market today. Activists say up to 30 people are dead and 80 injured. There were other strikes today too, here in Douma, also in Hama and Aleppo, in what appeared to be a last show of force. Yet in just 2 days' time, a new peace deal is meant to be in place. In the early hours of this morning, America and Russia announced they had a plan.
Today, the United States and Russia are announcing a plan which we hope will reduce violence, ease suffering, and resume movement towards a negotiated peace and a political transition in Syria.
Although the 5 documents prepared by both sides have not been released, the details of this new plan include a 7-day ceasefire that's to begin at sundown on Monday. And opposition groups are urged to disentangle themselves from the Nusra Front and the so-called Islamic State. If that works, the US and Russia will establish a joint implementation center to share data and coordinate bombing of the militants. The bedrock of the plan, Mr. Kerry said, is an agreement that the Syrian government would not fly combat missions in an agreed area on the pretext of hunting the militants. And the 2 sides said the deal would allow humanitarian aid to reach besieged areas, including Aleppo.
We and the United States will do everything we can to make all sides comply with the arrangements. As I said, the Syrian government has been informed by us of these arrangements and it's ready to fulfill them.
In Aleppo, the prospect of the ceasefire timed to coincide with the Muslim holiday of Eid al-Adha seemed only to encourage the barrage of bombs. We spoke to some residents in this rebel-held city, asking them, what do you think of this plan?
What's the use of a ceasefire if they start fighting again after the holiday? No, we don't want it, because they don't respect the ceasefire. It happened before and they just started bombing us again.
How can they talk about the ceasefire and the missiles are continuing to fall on the city?
It has taken 10 months to reach what is being seen as a significant moment in this 5-year-long bloody conflict. And it comes a year since Russia's military intervention. But at times during the marathon talks on Friday, it appeared they would once again fail. Waiting journalists were treated at one stage to culturally appropriate pizza from the Americans and vodka from the Russians. Mr. Lavrov blaming the US for the delay. Much is said to be missing from the deal. What happens, for instance, if any of the parties violate the terms? But the hope, and that's the word both sides are using, the hope is that it will lead to some form of peace.
Well, whatever the merits, achievements and possibilities of any ceasefire deal, the fate of President Assad matters hugely. His continued presence in Damascus has been a major stumbling block for any coordinated attempt to stop the fighting. Long accused of killing thousands of his own people and using chemical weapons, early this week the Syrian leader hosted a delegation of British peers and priests, among them the Reverend Michael Nazir Ali, the former Bishop of Rochester. He claimed that President Assad was being unfairly demonized in the West, but has been facing mounting criticism over his trip. Well, he joins me now. Welcome to the program, Bishop.
Yes,
so,
hello.
Unfairly demonized in the West, did you really mean to say that?
Yes, I mean, our trip was not to visit him. Our trip was really to visit the Syrian people.
But you did say that about Assad.
And particularly Christians,
Yeah.
as well as Muslim leaders and other community leaders, and victims of the war. But of course, if you're in Syria and the president invites you to visit him, you do visit him. And we did. And we were very frank with him about some of the issues that we wanted to raise. But yes, I mean, we talked to President Bashir in the Sudan, and to the mullahs in Iran, and Senator Kerry was talking yesterday about being willing to sit down with the North Koreans and with Mugabe in Zimbabwe. So what is unique about Assad then?
But there's a difference between talking to these people and saying that if they've been behaving as badly as he has been, that they have been unfairly demonized.
Well,
I mean,
yes.
If you're a victim of a barrel bomb attack or a chlorine gas attack, that's a deeply insulting thing to say.
These reports are completely unverifiable. They come from rebel sources. They've not been verified. I've talked to senior British journalists
the UN
in Syria
has verified
today.
them.
Yes, but who is responsible for them is the point. However, I mean, the point is the real mass murderers in Syria are ISIS, the Islamic State, and Jabhat al-Nusra and people who are fighting with them.
Are you saying that President Assad is not?
No,
Someone
I'm
who's
not
committing
saying, of
mass
course
murder?
not. The Syrian Arab army is fighting a war. I'm sure that many things have happened, and we've raised some of them with him, that are quite unacceptable. But the real mass murderers, not just in Syria, but also in Iraq next door, are ISIS and Jabhat al-Nusra and people like that.
No one is denying that, but from the way you put it, it sounds as if you're letting President Assad off the hook.
Not at all, not at all. I think he should be held to account. I mean, for example, barrel bombs, if they are causing mass casualties.
But they are. We know they are.
Well,
see
we asked
day,
him
day
about
after
this.
day after day.
We asked him about this. We asked him about siege and the supply of goods to people in besieged cities. We asked him about torture in prison. I mean, all of
Chemical
those
weapons.
things. Chemical weapons. Of course, his point is that he has, or the Syrian government has placed chemical weapons under the inspection of the United Nations since last year.
But they're still being used, and we just saw
Yes,
it
but
last
who
week.
is using them? This is the point. I mean, it may be the government, it may be the rebels, because they also have chemical weapons. And indeed, they have captured stocks, which they have captured from the government. So until this is verified, you can't accuse one party or the other. But of course, it needs to be verified.
But we saw pictures just today of children being targeted in a marketplace. I mean, some of them killed, some of them barely survived. And this is mass murder against
Let me
kids.
tell you, the day we left Aleppo, there were 4 suicide attacks, killing scores of people, if not hundreds, by the rebels. Car bombs in Aleppo, in Latakia, in Tartus, and in Damascus. So who's responsible for that?
But when missiles come from the sky, when barrel bombs fall out of planes, we know that only one side can be responsible because the other side doesn't have planes.
Well, no, they
we
don't,
know
but-
who's
but
got the planes in Syria.
This is
It's
true.
the Syrians and the Russians.
This is
and the
absolutely
Americans.
true, but the rebels have other weapons. I mean, for example, they are using a particular kind of dirty bomb, which is made of gas canisters full of shrapnel and which is fired from something they call a Hell cannon. Well, I've seen that. I mean, that is
Where
no
have you
better
seen
than
that?
anything else. In Aleppo.
Right, in Aleppo itself.
In Aleppo
and
itself.
you're confident it was used by them. That's the evidence that you've collected.
Absolutely. You ask anybody, the gas canister bombs are used by the rebels.
So one final question. Do you think that there's any hope for this deal at the moment?
Well, the two of the rebel factions have already said they are not going to play ball with it, the Free Syrian Army and Nuruddin Zenki. I doubt if Ahrar al-Sham and Jaish al-Islam, the other two Islamist groups, will play ball either. President Assad has said already that he will. He will go along with it. I hope that it succeeds. I pray it succeeds. There are a transitional agreement where the government, the internal opposition, the exiled opposition, and whoever there is left of the moderate opposition, there's not much left, a senior British journalist told me of them. That could work with goodwill on every side.
That's a big if. Bishop Nazolia, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you indeed.
Downing Street has distanced itself from comments made by the International Trade Secretary Liam Fox after he claimed that Britain had got too fat and too lazy to do business abroad. In remarks recorded at a Conservative drinks reception, Mr. Fox suggested the top executives were too busy playing golf to search for new export opportunities. Labour described it as offensive and crass and said that he should apologise immediately.
We have become too lazy and too fat on our successes in previous generations. We've got to change the culture in our country. People have got to stop thinking about exporting as an opportunity and start thinking about it as a duty.
Any decision to give MPs and ministers a free vote on expanding Heathrow Airport would be a fudge and a dodge, according to former Minister Grant Shapps. A confidential Cabinet Office email seen by this programme revealed that the government is considering whether to waive collective responsibility and let the Commons have the final say. Mr. Shapps said that would leave a major infrastructure decision pretty much to chance. At least 23 people have been killed and dozens injured after a fire broke out at a factory in Bangladesh. Officials said that the blaze was probably caused by a boiler explosion as workers prepared to start their shift. The four-storey building partially collapsed as teams of firefighters fought to bring the flames under control. 2 Polish police officers will start patrolling the Essex town of Harlow next week after the killing of a Polish man, which exposed deep fault lines in the community. Theresa May told her Polish counterpart last night that hate crime has no place in UK society. Police are still investigating the death of 40-year-old Arek Jóźwik, but what impact has it already had on a town where tensions are still rising? Porrick O'Brien has spent the week in Harlow to find out.
The vigils are over. But every night at the Stowe Harlow, Arek Jóźwik's best friend, Arthur, keeps the candles burning.
After work, I'm just coming here and I'm just lighting up the candles. I'm just spending, 1 minute in quiet, just talking to him, like in my mind.
Is that right?
Yeah, this is what I'm doing, yeah.
Can I ask you a personal question? When you are, for that minute that you're talking to him, what are you saying?
What I'm saying?
Yeah.
I can tell you one thing. I'm just telling him, I miss you. I really miss you. This is what I'm saying to him.
Throughout the night, after long shifts at work, they stop at the spot where Arek Jóźwik was attacked. A fortnight ago, a group of local teenagers, a single punch, a community lost for words.
It's heartbreaking, I swear.
For the people we met, this death has opened up the archives, story after story of racist abuse. Arthur, for example, back in June, Poland had just lost to Portugal on penalties at the Euros. He was sitting here with friends, mulling over the match.
I właśnie tutaj w tym miejscu była właśnie grupka około 15 właśnie tych chłopaków, tych młodzieńców i zaczęli wykrzykiwać w naszą stronę, bo zobaczyli, że jestem i tak samo był ubrany, zresztą on tak kapelusz, szalik, jest duży orzeł I to im się nie spodobało i było hasło, mogę zacytować? Polish. A w ten sam dzień, parę godzin później, 2 moich kolegów, których bardzo dobrze znam, zostało pobitych, też brutalnie, ale nie ze skutkiem śmiertelnym, tu właśnie w tym miejscu.
This is real.
Miroslava Gusmadzinska's story, one of pressing charges for racial harassment against a former neighbour and winning.
You live here around.
Huh?
You live here around.
Yeah, I've lived here all my life. I grew up here from a teenager into a man.
Do you know them kids?
Yep.
As we spoke, a young man arrived to pay his respects. The night, our story, about to take a different turn.
So how do you feel about all this, lads?
It's very upsetting.
Yeah.
It's disturbing. But it's not racism.
You don't think?
No, it's not. It's not racism.
For Bradley Wernham and many other British people we spoke to, this was the product of gang culture and of the police losing control.
Basically, what's going on is people are making it a racism thing. Now, to the people like us lot who weren't here when it happened, who have got any involvement in this, yeah, what's we're hearing now? Racism, racism, racism. I regret some of the things that I done when I was younger. I could have quite easily been in a situation like this. Thank God that I wasn't.
Bradley Wernham is uniquely qualified to talk about antisocial behaviour. An ASBO at 11, trying to turn his life around now after a recent release from prison.
Yeah, a lot of burglaries, yeah.
Yeah. How many?
700.
700 burglaries.
Yeah.
Single-handedly raised the crime rate in his area by 500%. Became the poster boy at the time for Broken Britain. This chance meeting will bring us on a journey which we will come to. But first, last Saturday's vigil for Arak marked the start of a week of charged diplomacy. Monday, Polish government ministers flew over to meet the Home Secretary.
They are contributing to the society, to the community, to the economy. They are paying taxes. They deserve to be protected.
Tuesday, Polish police sought reassurances from Essex police. And we asked them how they categorise something as a race hate crime.
So if somebody perceives it as a hate crime, it's a hate crime?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is why this is a hate crime. That is why.
What if their perception is wrong?
Well, this is the definition, and of course my role is to work to that definition. They are the government guidelines, they're quite rightly put there, so make sure that the focus doesn't get it wrong. So, you know, it'd be far more dangerous to say to not deal with this as a hate crime, when actually it is.
Perception's important then.
You right, yeah? Sweet.
Back on the estate, we're about to get a lot of them.
I don't think it's a racist attack, I just think this is normal, really, in Harlow. Do you know
what do you mean it's normal?
It's
like,
normal. People get attacked every day. Like, I've had it before. Drunk man come out of the pub, whack.
Right.
No face, please.
So it's like a culture of sort of low-level violence rather than a culture of racism necessarily.
Yeah. Yeah, because at the end of the day, let me put it to you like this: you're 15, yeah. I don't know, say late 20s, mid 30-year-old geezer comes out, he's giving, he sees drunk, you knock him out. Do you know how you're feeling when you go back into school on Monday?
Yeah.
I'm not out big man. You know? That's how you feel.
These men's experience of immigration is not the hiring of nannies and cleaners. It is one of sharing the warehouse floor.
It's hard, like, the working. If you go into a job, it's more Polish people, you can't talk to no one.
Yeah.
And, like, obviously it's our country, you know what I mean? Yeah, everyone can come over and do their thing, but they should at least know a little bit of English to, like, say hello or excuse me.
Yeah, because it's communication.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If miscommunication at its highest point is when we don't speak the same language.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's the highest level of miscommunication, because we can't speak.
They don't share the same language as some of their work colleagues. They do share a lot else.
They're here to get their bread for their family, man.
Yeah.
Same way what we're trying to do out here as well. Do you know what I mean? So I can't hate on them for that. But
What would you say it's a dog eat dog world or what, boys?
a doggy, of course,
Yeah,
it's a
of course,
doggy.
yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You have to
Dog.
do more lives you bring in the world, the more like head you got to support, then it gets just doggier and doggier.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So of course it's a doggy dog world, man.
Last word to Arthur. As he and Arak worked side by side on the production line, Arthur was teaching him English.
A tutaj on powiedział, że tu jest jego rodzina, tu jest jego miejsce i że on tu chce zostać i za wszelką cenę chce się nauczyć języka angielskiego. Tylko że nie zdążył.
Warwick O'Brien reporting. New colour photographs of Mars have been beamed back by NASA's Curiosity Mars rover. The images show detail of rocky terrain and hill formations in an area known as Lower Mount Sharp, a huge formation of sedimentary rock that rises from the floor of the Gale crater. Searchers are hoping for a better understanding of how the geological landscape of Mars evolved. Sport now, and it's been a long journey back from the lower leagues, but today Rangers met their historic rivals Celtic in the Scottish Premiership for the first time since their financial collapse 4 years ago. But the Old Firm derby didn't quite go the way that they might have hoped, as our chief correspondent Alex Thompson now reports from Glasgow.
Sauchiehall Street, central Glasgow, early doors. Lyrical, tranquil, a city in harmony. But the Glasgow derby, back after 4 years, can unite the ununitables. Ask Celtic and Rangers fans what it means to them.
We win, we're laughing. I mean, they win, no. I don't know what I'm going to do tonight if they win.
I think it's just because Rangers have now been brought into our league. And I think this is the main thing.
But for both sides, it is both sides. It's about the passion. It's about
just a bit, yeah.
Yeah.
Rangers forever, mate. Right, always. So it's the same as it ever was. That's the message, right? Ever is, but better.
What's the day mean for you?
Everything. Everything you can possibly imagine. Everything that means anything to you, times it by 100. And if we beat them today, I'll be delighted.
As ever with Glasgow football, the debate is fierce and it continues. The narrative for the Scottish football authorities and the mainstream media, for that matter, is that the Old Firm is back and it's here to stay. But for thousands of Celtic fans, they say, it's all new. Rangers died when they were liquidated. Though clearly some fans managed to enjoy it all without the hatred.
I think despite all the arguments we've had about new club, old club for Rangers over the last 4 years, you can see quite clearly in Glasgow today that this fixture still means the same as it ever did. So while some people might say technically it's a new club and people will continue to argue about that, and I think you'll see a lot of that in the stadium today as well, I think it still shows that it still symbolises all those old rivalries and all that bad feeling. So I think in many ways it is much the same fixture.
So once again, the major police operation, scores of vans, hundreds of officers to segregate the away fans as they arrive and depart from Parkhead. On the park itself, Celtic took 32 minutes to get ahead of their greatest rivals, Moussa Dembélé scoring with a header. 10 minutes later, he made it 2 with some neat footwork and a really composed finish. Rangers did pull one back, but were never going to do much more after Philippe Senderos, already on a yellow card, was sent off for a blatant handball. From then on, a demolition derby. Dembélé wanting more and duly completed his hat-trick before Celtic ran out 5-1 winners. Demolition off the park as well. Police Scotland confirming tonight that this is what Rangers fans did to the Lous in the away end. And so they left. The agony and the ecstasy, leaving some Celtic fans to stay back and perform another ritual of these derby meetings, the abuse of the leaving team, singling out Rangers' Joey Barton for particular treatment. Though Barton probably took all this as a backhanded compliment. Alex Thompson, Channel 4 News, Glasgow.
Manchester City have beaten Manchester United in an exciting derby match at Old Trafford. Manchester City took the lead early in the first half before making it 2-0 with a close-range finish. United cut City's lead shortly before half-time, but struggled to find an equaliser in the second half. Final score, Manchester United 1, Manchester City 2. Liverpool and Leicester are currently playing in this evening's Premier League match at Anfield. Liverpool took a 2-goal lead inside half an hour, but a terrible mistake by Brazilian midfielder Lucas allowed Leicester striker Jamie Vardy to score. With the match in injury time, the score is now Liverpool 4, Leicester 1. Tennis, and Britain's Jamie Murray has won the US Open men's doubles title alongside teammate Bruno Soares. The pair won in straight sets against Pablo Carreno Busta and Guillermo Garcia Lopez at Flushing Meadow. The win is Soares and Murray's second major title after their victory at the Australian Open in January. Now, on day 3 of the Paralympics, Great Britain won 7 gold medals to continue an extraordinary start to the Games in Rio. At one point last night, 3 gold medals were won in just 9 minutes. With Andy Lewis winning yet another gold today, Great Britain now has a total of 29 medals. Kieran Moodley has a report.
Johnny Peacock was one of the stars of London 2012 when he took gold 4 years ago. But after struggling with injury, Peacock said he wasn't the favourite this time in the T44 100-metre final. Well, it didn't look that way. Peacock's medal was one among many as Britain witnessed a gold rush. And it all started with an amazing 9 minutes in Rio. At 5:35 local time, Jodie Cundy won gold in the C4 1 kilometre time trial, making amends for 2012, when he was disqualified in the same race. 2 minutes later, over at the Maracanã, Georgie Hermitage set a new world record to win the T37 100 metres, with Sophie Hahn winning gold moments later in the T38 final. But one of the night's most enduring images was of 15-year-old Ellie Robinson walking out to set a new world record in the S6 50-metre butterfly. With Andy Lewis adding to Britain's medal haul today with gold in the PT2 triathlon, Paralympics GB will be confident of yet more success in Rio.
And one bit of late news, the Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton has apologized for saying that half of Donald Trump's voters belonged in a basket of deplorables. In the last few minutes, she said that she wouldn't stop calling out bigotry and racist rhetoric in the campaign. Mr. Trump had called the comments insulting. Well, we're back tomorrow at 7. Until then, that's Channel 4 News. Have a great evening. Thanks for watching.